But Jerry, we haven't got a chance to do this all season, and there's a Star Wars show out. So I think it's time as we get into the Acolyte to bring this back because we're going to discuss the Acolyte finale, and there's only one way to do it, and that's to go proper, do it right. And ladies and gentlemen, it's time for sing along. You know the words. Star Jazz, it's fucking Star Jazz, Jazz talking Star Wars, Jerry and Jazz. Star Jazz, it's fucking Star Jazz, Jazz talking Star Wars, Jerry and Jazz. Because a long time ago, in a galaxy not too far away, recorded from Ringsend, and Jerry's recording on Zoom as well in Dublin, two GERS came together. Well, not every week because, again, there's a lot on, but like we've tried to come together as often as possible to discuss all things Star Wars. Obviously, huge fans. The Acolyte has wrapped its first, maybe only season. We will discuss that as we get on with its season finale, airing obviously on Tuesday nights, Wednesday mornings. I'm gonna miss getting up. I did wake myself up, which I'm doing for House of the Dragon as well. I'm gonna miss that as well. Whatever we say about the show, so we're gonna recap. We're gonna dive deep into it. But before we do, as we always do, we're gonna recap the episode that happened and put you back into the mindset with our alternate recap. And we kick off with Osha in her Venom-inspired Sith helmet, having the equivalent experience of kind of a force asphyxiation. Just a warning, Osha. Like, it might feel good in the moment, but it can go very wrong very quickly. Sometimes the Forcegasm just isn't worth the risk, Osha. Be careful there. They decide, her and Chimera decide to race to Brendok while it appears Darth fucking Plagueis chills in the background, lurking like he's Saul watching children play in the woods. Speaking of Force BDSM and Saul being a bit of a creep, May escapes from his restraints, sparking a high-speed chase towards Brendok, where Basil sabotages Saul after he went into full kind of I've fallen in love with a child I just met, and for some reason I now need to murder people because of it mode. In Coruscant, Senator Raincourt confronted Venestra on covering up the Jedi murder investigation from the Senate and speaks some hard truths that a lot of us Jedi skeptics have been saying for years. It's always dangerous to call a crazy person crazy to their face, Raincourt, though, so fair play for that. Saul, May, Osha, and Chimera head back to a desolated witch's coven where it all kicks off like the Matrix with lightsabers. Osha takes the red pill and force chokes Saul to death after he confesses that he killed her mother, while May takes the blue pill and has her memory erased so she couldn't give Osha up to the Jedi. We have to discuss why the hell that happened. I don't really understand it. Back on Coruscant, Venestra realizes May doesn't have any memories after she was 8, which might work for her not ratting out her friends, but she presumably also forgot how to cook for herself, so that's just awkward and inconvenient. Chimera and Osha held hands and looked into the distance together as Darth Plagueis presumably wanked away in the shadows like a little Sith cook. And Venestra tells Yoda that she needs to talk as the credits rolled, and we were this week spared of an R&B track about twins making John Williams weep in favor of some Power of Two chants instead. And that was the season finale of The Acolyte, the creatively titled Episode 8. That was the name of this episode. Episode 8.
Of course it was. Of course.
Gave up, I think, at the end with the episode titles. But did they give up on the show, Jerry? We've had our backs and forths on this. We've had kind of differing opinions, and at different times, you've been more positive on this, I think, at the start. And then I was more positive as we kind of got into it. But now we've seen the full season. We've seen the bigger picture. Leslie Holland's been trying to paint for us. The question is, did they land a plane with this episode? Or was it more like May crashing to Brendok? And just more high-level thoughts on the episode. We'll get into the individual plot components. But what did you think of the episode and how it tied together the season?
For me, my views on it. It started strong for me, very, very strong. Those first 2 episodes. As it went along, I'm like, okay, this is okay. And then a couple of things happened. I'm like, oh no. But I'm happy to say that I feel that this episode redeemed the season.
Okay.
I don't, I have a page up here on the computer, and I'm looking at what the ratings are on online. You've got IMDb is rating this 3.6 out of 10. It does not deserve that. Not at all. At least Rotten Tomatoes is giving it 81%, which is not too bad. But that's only one side of the Rotten Tomatoes kind of judging panel,
Yeah.
I suppose. But for me, no, this definitely it definitely redeemed itself in terms of the season. It brought it back up because you know me, I had there's certain things that I couldn't have given less of a shit about in terms of canon and stuff like that. I was like, oh, Keanu Money was in it. He's not supposed to be alive. I'm like, where does it say that?
Mm.
Where in a film or a series or an official fucking book does it say that? It doesn't. So shut your mouth and just enjoy it because it's Star Wars. There was one thing for me, it was like, how do they deal with the whole, the Sith thing? And I think it was dealt with beautifully. The whole episode, and this was a particularly long episode for the show because a lot of the episodes are only about 28, 30 minutes. I'm like, this was a long episode. I'm like, I kept thinking, oh, it's going to end now, and it didn't. I was like, oh, geez, I'm going to check. Oh, just 20 minutes left. Fucking hell, this is great. So I was really, really enjoyed it. It was high intensity. The one thing I will say is that this show has done something, and I think you touched on it the last time we were talking. This show has touched on something that hasn't really been done for a long time in Star Wars, and that is the choreography in this has been absolutely stellar.
Yeah.
Absolutely stellar. You cannot fault it at all. I saw a review of this episode today on TikTok, and how the person was saying that you could be you could be mistaken if you looked at it and thought, oh, this is one of those amazing cinematic sequences they do for the Old Republic game, but it was real. I'm like, Jesus, yeah, this was fantastic. From start to this episode was good. Now, saying that, for me, there are parts of it that are confusing.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we are going to get into the nuts and bolts of it there, but for me, this has redeemed it very much so. And now I'm like, right, okay, you know what? I'm ready for season 2. Give me a season 2.
Okay.
I'll be happy to see a season 2. There certain things happened in it, certain characters, things that I didn't expect to see, and like for me, I think who'd you say the showrunner was for this?
Leslie Hyland.
Leslie Hyland. I think Leslie Hyland wanted to go along the sense of, that first season of Game of Thrones, you got so many like, Jesus Christ, what the hell just happened? They just go off Ned Stark's fucking head. He's fucking his sister. What? That type of thing. So it went for the shock value, and you very much got that with this show from start to finish. The very first episode, Carrie Ann Moss lasts the whole 2 minutes. You're like, hold on a minute, is she not the star power in this show? And she's dead. She's gone 2 minutes later. Yeah. So they went for the shock value, and the fact that we had so many main characters die in the first seven episodes, I was going, where the fuck are they going with this? This I thought was parts of it were disjointed and parts were all over the place. But everything, by the end of this episode, everything made sense. Now, saying that, as I said to you, there are a couple of, for me, slightly confusing issues.
Yeah, I agree.
But they're minor.
Yeah.
For me, this is like, okay, you've done it now. You've given us the climax we deserve. Where do we go from here?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm excited to see where it goes, or should I say, if it goes.
Yeah.
Simply because Disney have been very, very critical of anything that's getting bad reviews, and they're just canceling it. Gone. Now, if it's bad reviews, now fuck, it's gone. What's the point? So I'm like, just hold out. Give us another season. Hold out. See what happens. But yeah, really good. Really, really good.
We're on a roller coaster. It seems like every time we catch up, we're on slightly different. We're not usually we're very in sync for how we feel about Star Wars shows, good or bad. But this one where we just can't get fully in sync. I think there's a rush in Star Wars in particular, but all of kind of fandom media. And maybe it's because there's podcasts like this and there's shows and hot takes and everyone has to tweet about it and have their opinion and stuff like that. And you don't get much traction with an opinion that says, it's good. There's a lot of things that I didn't love about it, or there's a lot of things there that. And I don't think people know how to live in these days with a show that's maybe, I don't like rating shows necessarily, but like a show that's a 6 out of 10, maybe, you know what I mean? That has a lot of interesting ideas, but a lot didn't work. It either has to be perfect and amazing, or if it's not perfect, it's shite. And then there's like, I had this debate this week on TikTok with an absolute Neanderthal of a Star Wars fan. I'm quite confident they don't listen to the show. It just popped up on their feed. Who described this show as woke crap, which kind of shows the bad
Oh,
faith
fuck off! Like,
that
just
has kind of been the backdrop to much as Chris. And I'm actually glad he said that because we know what he means by woke crap. We know what he means. In the
yeah,
eyes of these people, woke means there's women in prominent characters, there's people of different ethnicities, and as well, there's like this wasn't acknowledged, but we can infer like there's one probably gay Jedi, and that's what was good about it because again, it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a plot point. They weren't going, "Oh, are you gay? Do we get extra point?" They weren't doing that, but like it was like kind of like a non-heteronormative character. Um, but they just existed and they didn't do anything, and you could just ignore it. You didn't have to. But again, that's challenging kind of the straight white male Jedi archetype that they're used to and makes them feel safe. Because Star Wars, and I get it to a point, Star Wars is a comfort blanket for most people and they like to feel safe and understand what they do. And but I think that speaks more to their insecurity in the planet and their worldview than anything else. And again, that's kind of the backdrop to a lot of the review bombing. So it's why I don't take it seriously. But I do unfortunately worry if Disney takes that seriously,
yeah.
and that's something to worry about. This was a mixed bag of a series, and this episode was like so others. There's a lot of really interesting ideas, a lot of really cool stuff. I find it very enjoyable to watch minute to minute because there's always something happening. It never bored me, but at the same time, I feel like it's a bit all over the place narratively. And that makes that difficult to land emotionally with me. You know what I mean? The big moments don't hit me in my core the way the big Star Wars moments do. It's just that for me, in 8 episodes, they're trying to do so much. And I appreciate it. Leslie Hayland has earned her Star Wars stripes. She is a legit fan like me and you. She's just got a chance to write a show for Disney and she wants to do everything because she knows I might only get 8 episodes of this. So what's she doing? She's trying to challenge the Jedi's kind of wisdom head on. She tries to show a conspiracy and how the Jedi arrogance directly led the Sith to return. And if anything kind of played into Darth Plagueis' hands, is what she kind of starts to get at in this episode. And I imagine if she got a season 2, that's what she'd start to kind of dig into. Do a murder mystery, which kind of opens it up into unraveling, into bringing in the bigger picture where we get Plagueis, we get Yoda, and so on, while giving us new characters to kind of invest in. And then you have the awesome action that you spoke of. That's a lot for a short 8 episode run where the episodes are a half an hour at best. And if you're trying to do 10 things at once, it's like in work, I work a lot on projects in my day job and I work with project charts and you have to fill in your progress on all of them at the way. And if I was to look at where she landed with all of these, it's probably 60 to 70% done. But the problem is she's run out of time. She's hit the deadline. It's now 8 episodes. So she hasn't hit anything with 100%. She's just kind of opened up a lot of interesting boxes. But like I said, it was the type of show that I like shows and movies that swing and sometimes miss and sometimes hit. I appreciate the ambition here, and I think that's what it was. Is the show perfect? No.
No.
Was this episode one of the all-time great episodes of Star Wars television or Star Wars stories? No. But was there a lot to like and admire about the Acolyte? I think there was. I think this was a plucky, respectable show, had a lot of interesting ideas. I'd like to see more shows like it than your Boba Fett's. Like what I don't want is, and I know we disagree a bit on Boba Fett as well, but like I feel like that was like more fan servicey. Obi-Wan, I feel was a bit fan servicey, just giving us content for the sake of giving us content. Damn the canon, damn whatever else it does, damn what you'd invested in. We're just gonna throw this here or throw this person here because it's cool. This show had a vision and it had an idea, and I respect that, and I respect it more than the shows that just exist to tick a box. Even if it didn't all work. The first thing I want to talk about when we get into the plot is I'm just going to read out the quote from Senator Raincourt. And I just want to get your thoughts on the quote. We know what it is, but I think it's just worth calling out because it's excellent. I think the Jedi are a massive system of unchecked power, posing as a religion, a delusional cult that claims to control the uncontrollable, not the Force, your emotions. You project an image of goodness and restraint, but it's only a matter of time before one of you snaps. And when, not if that happens, who will be strong enough to stop him? That is damning, cutting, and look, we know what happens with the Jedi. And
Yeah.
Anakin is the person that he refers to. He says he there specifically, and he's talking to a woman. And I don't think he's a Neanderthal Star Wars fan like the one I was speaking to on TikTok. But that's what they're getting at there. What are your thoughts on this critique? Because it really does sum up the show head on, and the ideas that stuck in the challenge about the Jedi.
When you look at the prequels and you see just how stupid the Jedi seem to have come because of the allowed Sidious to return. They allowed all this shit to happen. They allowed a war that cost the lives of millions, if not billions, of people, all because they couldn't see what was right in front of their fucking faces. And Luke talks about it in the sequels about the hubris of the Jedi. And that's what this is. The Jedi, like, you look at what the Jedi like did in the earlier part of this season, the earlier part of the show, which Saul and all the lads going to Brendok and thinking, oh well, that girl uses the Force, well, we're just going to take her now. Why? Do you have license to the Force? You have copyright to the fucking Force, or copyright to anyone who uses the Force? No, you don't. You arrogant arseholes. And to me, this is what I find very interesting about this show, is that this show is actually, it's making you believe the Jedi are actually the bad guys.
Yeah.
It really does. It really, really does. Like, you look at how this episode even ended. You don't appear to be looking at two people who would potentially be set as bad guys. You don't. You really, really don't. You look at the Jedi as the bad guys here. You look at the fact that Saul did it for selfish reasons. He was protecting them because I wanted to protect you because I loved you. I'm like, oh, good Lord. Like, what the actual fuck? Then you have Venestra covering up everything. A Jedi covering up everything. I was like, if that's not Sithish, I don't know what the fuck is. I was like, Jesus Christ. I was like, this is crazy. These are supposed to be the good guys, literally supposed. And it brings up I think I said it to you the last time. It was it's one of those sketch shows, one of those English sketch shows where it's two Germans talking to each other. It was like, are we the bad guys? That's what it feels like. I was like, the Jedi are the fucking bad guys in this. It's as simple as that. Because Saul murdered, and he's a master. Saul murdered a woman. You've got the fact that he's now taken an 8-year-old child to be his apprentice, and I'll use the rabbit ears there, to be his apprentice. But yeah, he says he loves her. You have another master that is covering up everything and covering up other stuff. I'm sorry. Look, now we know that she had an apprentice, and that apprentice legged it, and that apprentice has like whip-like scars all over his fucking back. From a Jedi? What? Surely not. No way. This show has flipped the narrative in Star Wars completely upside down, and the Jedi are now officially the bad guys. I'm like, I won't look at Jedi again. I won't look at Jedi the same way. I look at the likes of Obi-Wan and Yoda and Luke, possibly the same way. But now we're seeing that last scene.
Yes, that's what I want to talk about.
Is Yoda in on it?
Like, think about it. Like, think about this, Jared. Like, think about the implications of the final scene. Like, because before we get to that, we think, and even it's done very nicely, the end scene, because it looks like they're finishing, and even the score soars in that Star Wars way. Like, as Chimera and Osha hold hands, and we're like, that's the last scene, boom. And it's almost like a pre-credits, post-credit scene, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's like, we're finishing the show, boom, the door, it cuts to black, and then the door opens. And then we see the back of Yoda's head. Because where we left it before then is, oh, that's why we didn't hear about the Sith. That's why they said in the prequel trilogy, they've wrapped it up. Grant, they actually didn't fuck with canon here. But then they added that scene. So now we're left to infer that Venestra told Yoda everything. So Yoda, now everything we think about Venestra and Saul and everything we've seen, and the Jedi's now resisting again. It's like Star Wars was conceived with a very light side, dark side. When George Lucas first conceived it, the dark side and the Empire were very they weren't subtle. They were obvious kind of fill-in for Nazis and fascism, and that was what the dark side was. But covering up the truth and kind of resisting, like again, Raincourt is very much he wants to like commission an external review into the Jedi and their power, and he's not suggesting get rid of the Jedi. He's not a threat to them, but he just wants accountability, and the Jedi do not want that. They're pushing back on that. That's interesting. Now we know that Yoda is in on it. He knew. He contributed because we have to infer that when Vanessa says we need to talk, she talked and she told him. And until we hear otherwise, we now have to contend with the idea that Yoda knew there was Sith out there and did nothing. So is Yoda the hero we thought? And I like that. I like that. Like this is now because you had the prequels and you had the Clone Wars, and a lot of Dave Filoni's text has questioned the Jedi way and the wisdom, and are they actually the heroes? But nothing's ever come out, like you said, and said, are they actually the bad guys? But it's not in a bad way. We're going to talk the new series of Cobra Kai is out tomorrow. Do you watch Cobra Kai?
I don't know. I haven't watched it yet.
Cobra Kai is brilliant. Cannot recommend it enough. You'll love it. If you watch it and go, that side is Irish Whip, that side is NWA Ireland, you'll love it. There you go. I've just sold you on it. Just watch it. But what they show in Cobra Kai is that the Cobra Kai challenges the notion that Johnny Lawrence was the bad guy in the Karate Kid. And it says maybe Daniel LaRusso's the arsehole. And then they play with that and play with that and play with that. And then you're like, if you look at it from Johnny Lawrence's point of view, Daniel LaRusso's there. But if you look at it from Daniel LaRusso's thing there, and actually he's been an arsehole there, and they constantly just turn heel and face on each other because it's all about perspective. And that's what I feel this is. It's not saying dark side, light side. That's bullshit Jedi propaganda. That's them saying we're the good guys, they're the bad guys. But actually, it's from a certain point of view, who's the good guy and bad guy? The Jedi have their flaws just as much. They've actually engaged in murders. They've actually covered up things. One thing I want to talk to you that kind of touches on that is Saul. We got a very different Saul in this. It was much more like heelish. There was a heel turn here, and we knew it when like he again started pointing guns at May's ship, and Basil had to kind of interfere and sabotage him. There's a massive shift in his character, and there has been a lot of criticism. That I'd say I hear it. I'm interested to get your thoughts. I think there's some fair criticism there. Whether I agree or not, I'm not sure. But what are your own thoughts on this shift? Did this heel turn work for you with Saul?
Well, it's not like we didn't theorize that it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Because we did. Well, and when I say we, I mean you. You kind of theorized earlier on is that we were going to have like a double turn. That Kamir was actually going to be a good guy or good-ish, and Saul was actually going to be the bad guy, and that's actually what turned out to be. Now, in my mind, that would mean that, oh no, Saul was actually a Sith or some dark Jedi, wherever. But that's not the case. Because he still believed till his dying breath that number one, he was a good guy, and number two, he had done the right thing. Because he actually said it. I did the right thing. Or I did what I thought was right. What the fuck? Like, you murdered a woman who was literally just trying to protect her children. You murdered her. And then you tried to kill one of the kids. You essentially let one of them die, or what you thought was die, and then years later you tried to then shoot at her from your fucking starship. There's been so many levels to this. It's mad. Now, Saul was a great character. I felt Saul was a fantastic character from start to finish, but his character progression went so fucking quickly, and then did that double turn. You're like, wow, like where the hell? Like, I knew this was going to turn out kind of like this, but not like this. It was very interesting to me. But the thing is, I really liken the fact that we're now seeing the Jedi They were just arrogant arseholes who thought they had a monopoly on the Force, even though Vanessa said, "No, we don't control the Force." Or when she's talking to the senator, she says something along those lines. It's a thing where um they're just they genuinely believe that what they are doing is right. And like, how many bad guys have we said or has said that I did what I thought was right? I was doing what I thought was right. Like, look at the analogy of Thanos. Thanos believes that what he's doing with the click is what's right for the universe because there's too many people, and what he's doing is right, and everyone would be thankful. So that's what the Jedi do believe. They believe that what they do is right, that they're peacemakers. But if we cover up a little bit of murder, it's fine because we're still the good guys. No, what the fuck? Like, that's just
Mm.
insane. And the one thing though that I will say is it's particularly about one of those that last scene where we see the back of Yoda's head. I They can't go too much with that. They can't. And it's not about a canon. It's not from a canon standpoint. It's not. It's changing Yoda for the worse. Sure, he can know things, and she'll probably tell him, but he can't know everything because if he knows everything, that diminishes one of the greater characters of Star Wars to like every other Jedi. He's
Mm.
supposed to be wiser. He's supposed to be better. You look at the way he
Mm.
was on Dagobah. You look at what he said. You actually look at what you think about what he said as a Force ghost to Luke on in Last Jedi. Um, you know, the Jedi were wrong. They'll never be gone.
Yeah.
But the idea of them won't be gone. But we were wrong.
Yeah.
We were arrogant. I can't remember the exact quote,
Yeah.
but
No, I
basically,
know.
he was saying, yeah, we were wrong.
Fucked
But
it.
we can't. But Yoda cannot be somebody who is literally covering up murder. He can't. They
I
cannot go that
I'm
far with
a,
him.
I'm a bit more open to it because again, what makes this interesting and complex is that like they genuinely feel like they have to do the right thing. The justification for covering up murder and blaming it on May, which is an unquestionably horrific thing to do because you are then changing how a child perceives her sister, who we later learn in this episode is essentially the same person split in two. Um, so even closer than twins. How that works, I don't necessarily understand, but let's discuss that separately. Um, but you're then changing how they perceive that because you look at her alternative options for the future and say this gives her a better future, but destroys her past. That is monstrous, but also justifiable. You can understand why they'd make that decision in the moment because they only have a few seconds to make it. I feel that we have seen enough of Yoda where, and again, keep in mind, you can do bad things. Like look at the quote that Vanessa described, and again, Vanessa is an unreliable narrator, and not no angel by any means.
Mm.
But look at the quote she used to describe Saul in this. He was my friend. He was a kind, brilliant, compassionate man, and he did a terrible thing. And that can be true of anyone. So it doesn't diminish Yoda's willingness to do right. People can do awful things, or people can cover up awful things, or they can be part of awful decisions and they can live with regret, but they can still go on to do great things. They can still do good in their future. They can still want to make amends for that. And I don't know. I'm okay with this adding another dimension to Yoda because the Yoda we see in Dagobah talking to Luke in The Last Jedi is someone who is filled with regret, someone who has had time to reflect and has gone, yeah, we got stuff wrong. This is not, and that's where he's come to. And could this play into that regret? Could this be something that Yoda thought about, like in Force Ghost Eternity, wherever kind of he is in kind of the universe? But okay, so there's a couple of things on Saul's heel turns. We're speaking about it there, okay? So great heels believe that what they do and did is right. But why they're heels is because they lack the self-reflection to see how their actions were wrong, because they feel like their feelings that led to those actions are valid. You get me? And we all know people like that in our lives. We're like, I'm pissed off, so you know what I mean? Like, we can look at it in the world today, not to get political or anything like that, okay? But there are people who live in situations in Ireland where they're not able to buy a house, you know, and that's a very real, understandable scenario, and you can sympathize with those people. But burning down other buildings because you don't want immigrants, that's someone who's gone off the track. You know, your feelings are valid. The thing you started with is valid. And now you feel like all your actions are justified because you started from a valid place. That's a great healing story. And on that level, this worked because we see the timeline. When you put it all together, we see how Saul arrived at each decision, but he can't reflect on, I murdered her mother. He can't cope with that. He can't fathom that because he thinks he did it for a good reason. But the thing where this didn't work for me is we need to be on that journey for them. A heel turn should hurt you as a viewer, but also make sense. We should feel the sting of them going off the wrong track. It should be almost like a horror movie where we're like, don't go through that door. Don't go through that door. Oh, you went through the fucking door. And for me, I just didn't feel that. Like, again, when he's pointing the gun at May's ship, I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? That is such a fucking jump. You know what I mean? When he's chasing her down and it's like, what are you going to do here? Like, what are you going to do if you catch her? Are you going to just murder her? Like, but it seems like that's what you're planning here. You know what I mean? But so I wasn't on the journey with him emotionally. And that's where I feel that it just missed. And again, that's part of the show, just trying too many things. But all the building blocks were there. So I can forgive it. And they tried and they told a nuanced story, but they told a nuanced story while trying to do 10 different things at once with only 8 episodes and only half an hour for most of those episodes. So again, it's just one of the things that kind of got stuck along the way, like at the 60, 70% kind of mark, if you're looking at it at a project chart. One thing we both agree kind of really worked with this series was the action. It's been a huge win. Let's talk about it here and give it a bit of time. Saul versus Keimer, May versus Osha this week. Thoughts on the action, and we can kind of just celebrate something that's been a huge win for this show. Because for me, I'm straight up going to say it. It goes for Star Wars action. It goes Last Jedi top, Revenge of the Sith second, The Acolyte third. That's it. This is top 3 Star Wars action. Did the rest of the project work? No. Like, not everything worked in this, but the action is absolutely elite. Peak Star Wars. This is something that works for me. Thoughts on this week's fights?
This week's battle was or battles, I should say, were particularly good. You heard my thoughts on the particular episode where all those Jedi decided to be killed by this scrawny, skinny little shit. Now, obviously, when we see him in further episodes, you're like, he's not quite like that. He's actually quite buff and he's quite lean, and he's actually in great shape. But you can't fault the sequences that we got there because they were very artistically killed, I will say, because they all died very differently, and especially Jecki, wasn't it? Jecki, how she died was like, oh, and then boom, boom, boom. I'm like,
yeah,
Jesus Christ, she's a human pincushion. I'm like, Jesus, that is actually brilliant. Didn't expect to see it, but it was brilliant. The fight this week between Saul and Kamir was absolutely fantastic. The slow motion sequences, the different ways of how they used the lightsaber. So it wasn't just the fighting, it was the destroying of everything around them with the lightsabers. When they were going through that tunnel, they were literally cutting the tunnel in half. I'm like, this is quality. Like, I don't know, like, you're a big fan like me. You will have seen the edited version of the fight between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan from A New Hope, the edited version of that, and how epic that fucking edited version was. Somebody did that, and I'm like, that's really fucking good. This was like that. This was really, really good. And it also brings you to the point whereas when we get to the end of the fight and Saul does the swipe and you see the lightsaber cut in half, and you're half expecting to see Khmer be cut in half or something cut throat or whatever. You half expected to see that, but all you saw was the fact that the lightsaber's cut in half. So I'm like, okay, why'd you take the fucking helmet off then? I was like, there's no need for that. This sequence was fantastic. To a lesser extent, the sequence between the girls, that would have been, if that was a lightsaber battle, probably would have been as to the same level. But it was good to see. It was like this was the narrative between them is that they love each other, hate each other, love each other, hate each other, and then eventually get brought back together. This was really, really good as well. I just loved the action from this show. It has been next level, and it's like what I said earlier on from a reviewer I saw on TikTok. Some of these sequences have been something that you wouldn't expect to see from a live action. You expect to see from some sort of animation or like the high end graphics that you would see from the Old Republic, because they see the videos and the kind of promos they've done for that game have just been off the fucking charts, and this gave me that feel. I was like, this is really, really good. I want to see this. And I don't know whether I know you will have noticed. The lightsabers to me seem different. And I'm not talking about the hilts, I'm talking about the blades themselves. They seemed more transparent. They seemed realer, if anything. And that's what I liked about this, especially when
Chewie also liked it.
Yeah, so Chewie and Vader, they're with me as well, and they liked it as well.
The, the great battles in Star Wars this week. We saw Chimera against Saul. We saw May against Ocean. Now we're getting Chewie versus Vader. It's been a big week.
Oh, no. It's Chewie tag team with Vader to defeat Dart Kitty outside.
Amazing. They're tag teaming. Who thought we'd see Chewie and Vader team up?
Exactly. So now what I need to do is I need to close the blast doors so they can't fucking see it. Stupid cat.
Do what you gotta do. While you're doing that, I'll kind of give my thoughts. I loved this. Like, what I loved about this was the thought that's gone into it. And actually, like, we kind of got a feeling of this, like, and like casting Carrie-Anne Moss was a little bit of a nod to this. But then the scene where they kind of fell backwards and decided to go in slow motion and kind of fronted up to each other, I'm like, the Matrix. You did. You're saying the Matrix in Star Wars, and I'm like,
yeah,
fucking amazing. I fucking love it. It was brilliant. I love the thought that goes into these battles. I love the story of the battles. Like even Chimera's battle in episode 5, where he kind of showed himself as kind of the stranger. And like how it's thrilling, it's unexpected, it's something we've never seen. They've never thought through. Like you did mention Obi-Wan against Vader in A New Hope, but the one thing when you watch the original of that is how little thought went into actual lightsaber battles and how that in itself it can be a value add, you know what I mean? Because it's just very like Vader just kind of like, looks like he's never used a lightsaber. It looks like if you give it to me and say be cool with a lightsaber, I'm like and again, like, but just the thought and attention to detail that's gone into this, but how it fits in with the story, how it fits in, how it teaches us about it. It's like wrestling comparison. Do you remember Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit used to have matches, and they do amateur wrestling at the start, and you felt like you learned. You were like, they're fighting so fast with each other and they're shoe fighting, but you can see what they're doing and you're learning as they go yourself. You feel like you're a good wrestler because of this. I felt like I was learning how to lightsaber battle watching these two masters go at it, like how they were switching on and off the sabers to kind of benefit them strategically, how they were using the force at various parts, how they were tripping each other up, how they decide now we go hand to hand, you know what I mean? Because it benefits me. I'm in the pocket, so I'm going to switch to hand to hand. It was almost like an MMA fight, you know what I mean? They're mixing up styles, they're mixing up things, and it's just about like who has the greater power and who has the greater wit. And it's happening at breakneck speed. I also enjoyed the contrast to that and how I enjoyed Osha versus May here. It was very story orientated. It was a different kind of fight. It was a great contrast to have side by side. You're getting the amazing battle, but you need to break from that. And then you're getting the emotional battle. You know what I mean? Again, to bring back wrestling, it's like having a TLC match and then you follow it with a really good storyline match, which is like you're really invested in. And again, how they're not actually battling. They're like, O'Shea is trying to take out rage on May and trying to she's becoming the Sith like at the same time, and she's giving in to all of those negative emotions, but she also doesn't want to hurt her, and May doesn't want to hurt. She's just playing defense for the most part, even if she has to go on the offense. And again, the stories and layers and there's reasons for the characters and why they do what they do, but it's also thrilling at the same time. And then it culminates in Osha's full turn and choking out Saul. And fuck me, the first time, genuinely, the first time in film and TV history we've ever seen a kyber crystal being bled on screen. It has happened in video games. It happened in Jedi Survivor. I won't tell you who and how. That's a spoiler. Go check it out. It's amazing. But the first time we've ever seen it, and fuck me, it worked. It was incredible. The intensity of the scene, the fact that it's as Saul is about to say, because I love, like his last words was attempting to say, I love you. And she's just like, stop talking. And we could just see the rage fill up. That was a special fucking moment. And again, there's full of special moments, but then there's stuff that just didn't work, that just stops you from loving this show and wrapping our arms around this show. There are people that were never going to like this show, but there's so much to like about this. And for me, this was where I kind of went, huh? And it just had that kind of, Bran Stark's the king? What? It was kind of that moment. Jerry, maybe you'd be able to help me. Why did what May's memory have to get wiped? Why did she have to go and get taken by the Jedis? Why was that the plan? Why did Osha have to give herself up for that? I didn't understand any of this. Is it just because two and they're going off together? Like, why could May not go with them, but they drop her off on the way? If there has to be two of them, why can May not just go somewhere? They go into hyperspace, they fuck off somewhere else, and it's like, May, you go to that planet and start a new life. I didn't understand any of this. And I don't think they explained it. Am I missing something here? What happened there?
No, this is what I was saying at the start where I got a little bit confused. I'm like, hold on. So you both agree with him. You both wouldn't mind being an apprentice, but why does one have to go? So it's like Osha's like, I'll be your apprentice if you let her go. What if she doesn't want to be let go? What if she wants to go?
She wants to be with her twin.
Yeah. Or what if she actually wants to be another apprentice? Like just what, like another acolyte? What the fuck? This was part of the reason where I'm like, this is confusing. I'm like, it made no sense.
Yeah.
You know, if it was a thing where what I would have liked to see is maybe the Jedi actually did catch up with them. There was a little bit of a fight. May gets knocked to the ground, hits her head, loses her memory. So that would have been better than what we fucking got. I'm going to stay behind and you're going to wipe my memory. Yeah, bye. What?
Yeah.
No. This for me was one of the confusing parts. I'm like, this just makes absolutely no sense. Like zero, not even a little bit of sense. None, zero. I'm like, what the fuck did we just watch? But you know, this is a show. It's something that's new, something that's not been done before. It's not a story. It's not a film. It's not a book. It's completely different. They're bound to get shit wrong. But this was so glaringly obvious that it was wrong. I'm like, how the fuck did you get it so wrong?
Yeah.
This made no sense whatsoever. Absolutely.
Putting an R&B song in the credits saying the power of two, having the end credits be like the power of two, the power of two. Why the power of two? Are you telling us force dyads are here? Give us a bit of exposition on why two matters here. Like, again, we know about force dyads. We're going to speculate about that. But is that what you're saying here? Like, why two? Why does he need an acolyte beyond the fact that it's the name of the TV show? He doesn't know it's the name of the TV show. He doesn't know it's a fucking show. Do you know what I mean? Why two? Like, what are you trying to say beyond, like, well, two has been present a lot throughout the course of these people's lives. Yeah, but you know what? Let's just not. You know what I mean? Who's hanging around with Plagueis? Who's his tag team partner? All right. Like, why can't him and Chimera be two? And then the twins be two. And then they've two twos. Two twos. What's better than one two? Two twos. You know what I mean? I'm like, fuck me. Yeah.
I enjoy wearing it too. Yes.
It was a great, yeah, you do, to be fair. Yeah. That happened with the Woods thing we were talking about earlier as well. It made it even weirder. But
Jesus Christ.
it was so egregious that it just took me out. And this is an episode where we've pretty much and the more we've talked, the more we've loved talking about it and getting into it. We should love this episode and we should love this show, but that's what holds me back. Where I'm like, what? That was the end of the show. That's what everything rested on. That's why Vanestra, like, that motivated her character to get there. And it's just so egregious. It's like when you have a really good Marvel movie and in the last 45 minutes, they're just like, let's battle because that's what we do in Marvel movies. And then it's like, oh, you lost at the end. You fucked it with a weird ending. And yeah, that's the only thing, and that's kind of what it's left us with. And it may be the difference. That decision and that explanation, and us understanding that, and us being on board and getting that, and that clicking, is probably could be the difference between this getting a season 2 or not.
Yeah.
Ironically, the 2 thing is going to stop them getting a season 2. But like that's for Disney to decide. You already kind of said it, you want a season 2, and what do you want to see season 2 cover?
You see, but this is the thing. I know the show is predominantly going to be about Chimera and May and Osha, but they gave me, so you know my love for Grand Admiral Tron and the fact that we finally got him in Ahsoka as live action. I love that, but there's always been one character that I've been so curious about, and I really wanted to know more. And all we got was the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, and that's all we got. We've never gotten any more apart from one unofficial book when that was made into an audiobook. Now, if you haven't listened to it, it's literally just called Darth Plagueis. You haven't listened to it, listen to it. It's not canon, but fuck me, is it good? And I do mean it's good. It's such a great take on Darth Plagueis. Now, this particular book is actually set. It's only a couple of years before Phantom Menace, so it's and it takes place a couple of years before Phantom Menace, and then leads all the way up to the Clone Wars. So Darth Plagueis is actually still around at that point during this non-canon book. Now, the audiobook, I think, is voiced by, if I have it here, it's Daniel Davis. If you don't know Daniel Davis, he was the butler from The Nanny. And I know that's very random, but he was Professor Moriarty from Star Trek Next Generation. Nice. So he's a really, really good, classically trained, really posh sounding actor. So when he does the voices for Darth Plagueis and then eventually does the voice for Sidious in the audiobook, it's fantastic. This is what I'm looking forward to the most from a possible season 2, is that we are going to get more about Plagueis. And when you actually look at the speech of the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, it's the words are very, very telling for this particular story, is that he manipulated the midi-chlorians to create life. And that is essentially what the witches did. But did they really? Was it just them, or was it Plagueis manipulating this whole situation like he had manipulated other things? I'm like, that is very telling, the fact that we actually got to see him. And then we hear that quote of the manipulating the force to create life. And the fact that May and Osha aren't actually twins, they're not sisters, they're the same person. And I'm like, there's another ever so slightly not confusing thing, but I'm like, okay, I don't really understand that. Tell me more. Oh, you're not going to tell me more. You're going to leave for another season. Arseholes. It's like, but the thing, that's a good thing because it leaves you wanting more. That's the thing. So I want more about that. I want to know more about, are they going to be joined as one? Is that how this is? It is like a force thing where the two become one type of thing. What the fuck is going to happen there? What is Plagueis doing? This is 100 years before Plagueis is supposed to be around. So it's like, what is he doing all this time? Clearly, he was a Sith Lord for a long time, and that's what makes the Jedi even more stupid and even more arrogant, is the fact that it wasn't just seeing in plain sight Sidious, who was only around for what was it, about 5 or 6 years. Plagueis was around for over 100 years, maybe more, and they didn't even see it. They didn't have a fucking clue he was there. So that's what makes the possibility of a season 2 more interesting to me. We're going to get more about May and Usha. We're going to see exactly what Khmer is. Is he a Sith? Has he been working with Plagueis? We don't know these questions. We
Mm.
just know that Plagueis and him were on the same planet. Doesn't necessarily mean he was trained by Plagueis. It means that he had certainly turned to the dark side. But when you by the end of this episode, you're rooting for him. You're rooting for him and May and Usha. They're the bad guys or supposed bad guys. So that's what makes this whole thing actually interesting. In the end, it makes it more interesting.
Mm.
So from a season 2, I want to see more about Khmer. I want to see more about May and Usha. And what is this? It's not the rule of two, but it's the power of two. Is that the same as the rule of two? Will the two become one? And what are these plot threads that Plagueis is weaving? Because there's a lot more going on here than we can see, that we can even guess. And I'm like, that's what's left me wanting more now after watching this. So to be very interested to see if we get a season 2. I really, really hope we do, because if we do, this story could just balloon
Yeah,
to more than we can ever fathom. Like,
I
and I
totally
like that.
agree. And I think there's lessons to be learned here, but there's a lot of positives to take away, and that
Yeah,
season 2 could be a genuinely great TV show. The Mandalorian season 1 is a really good TV show, and there's a lot of good ideas, but it's not amazing. It gets remembered a lot more funny. Season 2 is where they got it. They're like, we know what works, we have our characters, we know what this show is, we feel it
yeah,
now. And I feel like that's what this can do as well. Take the positives, learn, and there's so much that they can go with, but learn your lessons from this. The unfortunate thing is that I think Leslie Hyland won't be in a strong negotiation position to own it in the way that I think as a creator you need to own it and to make stuff work in Star Wars.
yeah.
So I think she'd be starting from a weak standpoint, because I'm not sure. I don't know what the viewing figures are like for this again, and probably never will. But it's interesting anyway. There's a couple other things I'd like to see. I totally agree with Plagueis. Nothing to add, no notes. That'd be phenomenal. And even I feel like we might. I don't think this is the last we've seen of Plagueis here. I think they know that there's legs there to kind of grow on. The thing I'm interested in the least actually is May and Osha. Um, it feels like their arc's kind of wrapped up, and anything else will kind of just get messy or feel like tacked on. Although I do like the idea of two becoming one and so on, and how that would work, or what the plans could be to make it work, and how they kind of fight against it. I could be interested in that, but it's not the thing I necessarily want to see most. I would like to see, because again, this show now has established that flashback kind of aspect to it. I'd like to see specifically what happened with Venestra and Kymer. And I'd like to see that. That's your running thread of, are the Jedi's the bad guys in the same way, and they can kind of repeat the magic here. Um, Here's what I really want to see. Okay, what happened to Raincourt's external review of the Jedi? Because the next time we see Jedi in the canon, they're the exact same level of influential. A lot of the same people are there. Yoda's still there. They're like 100 years later, it's the same people at the top, and they're still just as influential. What happened there? Because to me, Raincourt had the measure of the Jedi. He called them out, and he was right. So you don't get to be right, but nothing changes in 100 years unless something happened to you,
Mm-hmm.
unless you were silenced. And is that more lean into the Jedi corrupting, pulling the strings? Does he get silenced? Does he get put away? Does he get sacrificed for the greater good? You can really lean into this, and that's where I feel you lean in, because it doesn't make sense. If someone high powered in the Senate is onto you, you've been caught and you've had to change. You've had to change leadership. You've had to change owners. You've had to do so what happened with that external review? Because if anything, that's exactly what should come of the revelations that come from this episode. So
Yeah.
why didn't it work? Because he was right.
Mm-hmm.
That's
It'd be very interesting to see if we do get a season 2, and that has to be added to it.
Mm.
Now, the only thing I will say is I actually agree with everything you said there. And that, to me, the plot point between May and Usher is it's secondary or third or fourth or fifth to me compared to other plot points. the thing is, this is called the Acolyte, so we know
Yeah.
it's going to be about them.
It's
If it does
about they
happen,
are the
it's going to
acolytes.
be about them. So that's what it
Yeah.
is. But
Yeah.
the thing is, I think they can make like, put more emphasis into the likes of Dark Plagueis,
Yeah.
into the external review of the Jedi, because that needs to, like, yeah, like now just that you've said it, I'm like, oh fuck yeah.
Yeah.
So are we actually witnessing the potential that more Jedi will murder, like as you said, for the greater good?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
You
oh,
can really dig in deep there if you explore that. And
Jesus.
look, let Jerry, we don't have to worry. Star Wars just disregards like the titles. Do you remember Book of Boba Fett? Like they're just like, this isn't working halfway through. Let's be the Mandalorian. And it
Mandalorian
worked. I
2.5.
mean, yeah, exactly. And then like it's again, even Mandalorian like season 3, like at times it's like, let's actually just resolve that Clone Wars plot. And let's be actually, it's not this Mandalorian. We just said there was a Mandalorian. No, he said it was the Mandalorian. We said Mandalorian, so Bo-Katan's the main character now. Shut up. You know what I mean? They have no problem shifting course
Mhm.
with a lot of things. I think that there's a greater good to be had there. Anyway, Jerry, love this discussion. You've really given me a lot to think about, and actually made me appreciate the episode a lot more. So I hope we've been able to kind of have that effect on other people as well listening. Always a pleasure. And look, I'm sure we'll catch up because there are still a lot of things that we're interested in,
Yep.
still airing and finishing up. But before we let you go, is there anything you'd like to plug, or is there anything you're watching or you're appreciating or reading or listening to in your world that you just want to call out and give some credit to if you don't have anything immediate to plug?
I don't. Well, at the minute, I'm. What the hell am I watching? I'm just rewatching old stuff, so I've nothing really new that I'm watching.
Give us a
Apart
sample.
apart from the boys, the fight, and we're getting the season finale now tomorrow. I'm like,
Exciting.
oh, I can't wait, cannot wait. Loving the fact as well is that the next season's final season. I'm like, right, shit's gonna go down in this one. But for me, we are just over a month away from the summer edition of Dublin Comic Con, where I'm going to be interviewing some absolutely amazing guests. With the two I'm looking forward to the most, probably of uh, any actors or any famous people that I've ever met, is going to be Captain Jamie herself, Kate Mulgrew, and the emergency medical hologram Robert Picardo from Star Trek Voyager. So really,
Oh,
really looking forward to two of those. I have the pleasure of interviewing both of them because I'm that good, or I won rock paper scissors. Um, that's just how it works in these situations. So I'm really, really, really looking forward to that. I have a couple of costumes as well that I'm hoping that I might get finished for Dublin Comic Con. One being a Star Wars one, and one being a Stargate one. Um, the Star Wars one, maybe I don't have enough time, but that may be for March for next year. But it's Bale and Skull, and I have about 80% of the costume done. I just need to get the gauntlets, which are like they have to be like armor, and then I need the lightsaber. I've sourced the whole lot. It's just a matter of actually having the money now. So
yeah.
that'll be the interesting part. But yeah, yeah, we'll see how it goes. But really looking forward to Dublin Comic Con.
If people want to go to Dublin Comic Con, what's the best way to get tickets? Sorry to put you
Uh,
on the spot.
Best way to do is go to DublinComicCon.com. Yes, DublinComicCon.com, or Dublin. If you go through Dublin Comic Con on either Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok, you'll be able to find the tickets. They are on sale. Both days are on sale, but they at this point they're selling fast. So I would suggest that if you're going to go, get your tickets now.
Get on it. There you go. Check out Jerry in the flesh. If you just can't wait to meet Jerry in the flesh, though, until Dublin Comic Con, do both, by the way, okay? But you can see him in just a couple of weeks in the Woolshed. Low Blows return for SummerSlam. The biggest party of the summer. We have announced this week beer pong is back. I'm going to give you a little exclusive now, especially just for people who've listened this far in. We're also going to have Limbo back. We're going to have Summer Games. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. We're going to have, again, like dress up summer team. And then you've got some interesting stuff. Is Roman Reigns going to make his comeback? And imagine how fucking cool that's going to be in the Woolshed with that pop. Okay, you want to be there, you need to be there. It's going to be awesome. And guys, like you said, we got a lot of people at WrestleMania when Loblos came back asking us, "Can you come back though? Like, would you really come back?" And we were able to because you guys supported it. If you want more, we want to do more. We're back from our side, but we need your support. So don't let it go. Don't say, wait until the Rumble. Wait till WrestleMania next year as well. If you want more, if you want to support us and you want all those good things to happen, we need your support. So get tickets eventbrite.ie. Jerry's going to be there. I'm going to be there. It's going to be a great night, and it will be a SummerSlam that no matter what happens, it's going to be a great show, I'm sure. But no matter what happens on the night, it'll be something you're going to be talking about and telling stories about for years. And that's the thing that really came out of WrestleMania, talking to a lot of old school heads who missed the parties. They were like, these were some of the best days of my life. And that's what we'll give you guys. I guarantee you, we'll give you a great SummerSlam no matter what happens. So check that out. SummerSlam tickets available in the Woolshed on eventbrite.ie. In the meantime, Jerry, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back later in the week. We're going to be discussing The Boys with Tom Pott of the Pop Cult Pod. And then we're going to be back next week to discuss Deadpool and Wolverine. And we're going to be checking in on House of the Dragon ahead of the final 2 episodes. But until then, for Jerry O'Brien, I've been Jerry Leggett. This has been the Dragon Boys of Summer. Add us on the Page 180 social pages, Instagram, add me on Twitter, add Jerry on Twitter, add us on TikTok as well. If that's how you like to follow us on YouTube. All the links are in the show titles. But Jerry, for now, you're with me, I am with you. Always one, born as two. As above sits the stars, and below lies the sea. I give you you, and you give me me.
And go fuck yourself.
What were you doing in the woods, though?
Fuck off!